Have you ever pictured a woolly mammoth? This shaggy giant with its huge, curved tusks is the ultimate symbol of the Ice Age, right? We imagine them roaming frozen tundras alongside saber-toothed cats and early humans in animal skins. But what if I told you that the story of the mammoth didn't end with the melting glaciers? What if I told you that while ancient Egyptians were meticulously building the Great Pyramids, a small, isolated group of woolly mammoths was still very much alive? It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but this is a scientifically proven fact that completely changes our perception of ancient history. So, how did this happen? How did a relic of the Ice Age survive thousands of years longer than we ever thought possible? Get ready, because today we're uncovering the incredible story of the last mammoths on Earth. The story begins around 10,000 years ago, at the end of the last Ice Age. As the Earth began to warm up, the vast, cold grasslands known as the Mammoth Steppe started to shrink. Forests and wetlands spread across the landscape, changing the environment dramatically. For the massive herds of mammoths that had dominated continents like North America and Eurasia, this was a catastrophe. Their primary food source, the tough grasses and shrubs of the steppe, was disappearing, and they couldn't adapt fast enough. On top of the changing climate, our own ancestors were becoming increasingly effective hunters. With a combination of environmental pressure and human hunting, the mainland populations of woolly mammoths began a rapid decline. By about 10,000 years ago, most of them were gone. For a long time, scientists believed this was the final chapter in the mammoth's story. But the truth was hiding in a few remote corners of the globe. As the sea levels rose with the melting ice, some mammoths found themselves trapped on islands that were once part of the mainland. One such place was St. Paul Island, a remote spot in the Bering Sea off the coast of Alaska. Cut off from the rest of the world, a small population of mammoths managed to survive here for thousands of years after their mainland cousins had vanished. Life on an island was different. There were no large predators to worry about, but resources were extremely limited. Over generations, these island mammoths actually began to shrink in size, a phenomenon known as insular dwarfism. They became a smaller, more resource-efficient version of their giant ancestors. But their time was running out. Studies of lake sediment on St. Paul Island revealed a tragic story. As the climate continued to warm, the island's freshwater sources began to dry up and become salty. The mammoths, desperate for water, congregated around the few remaining freshwater lakes, trampling the vegetation and dirtying the water. Eventually, there simply wasn't enough fresh water to sustain them. Around 5,600 years ago, the mammoths of St. Paul Island disappeared forever. This was a remarkable extension of their timeline, but it wasn't the end of the story. There was another island, even more remote, where the mammoths were still holding on. This final sanctuary was Wrangel Island, a desolate, windswept island in the Arctic Ocean, north of Siberia. It's one of the most remote places on Earth. Due to its unique location, Wrangel Island wasn't completely covered by glaciers during the Ice Age, and it maintained a patch of the mammoth steppe environment long after it had disappeared elsewhere. When the sea levels rose, a population of mammoths became isolated there, just like on St. Paul Island. But Wrangel Island was larger and had more stable resources, including more reliable freshwater sources from rivers and melting snow. This allowed the mammoths here to survive for an astonishingly long time. So, just how long did they last? Radiocarbon dating of mammoth fossils found on Wrangel Island has given us a clear answer. The last woolly mammoths were still living on this island as recently as 4,000 years ago. Now, let's put that date into historical context. 4,000 years ago is roughly 2000 BCE. This is a period of human history we know a lot about. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerian civilization had already risen and fallen, and the Babylonians were becoming a major power. In China, the legendary Xia dynasty was supposedly ruling, and most famously in Egypt, the Old Kingdom had already passed its peak. The Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, was completed around 2560 BCE. That's over 500 years. Before the last mammoths died out. Just think about that. While Egyptian pharaohs were being buried in magnificent tombs and thousands of workers were building structures that still awe us today, a herd of woolly mammoths was quietly living out its final days on a remote Arctic island, completely unknown to the rest of the world. It's a mind-bending overlap of two worlds we think of as being completely separate: the prehistoric world of Ice Age giants and the dawn of complex human civilization. This raises a fascinating question. Did ancient people ever encounter these late-surviving mammoths? On Wrangel Island, the answer is yes. Archaeological evidence shows that the first humans arrived on the island around the same time the mammoths disappeared. While we can't be 100% certain, the timing is highly suspicious. It's very likely that the arrival of human hunters was the final straw for the already fragile mammoth population. These mammoths were living in a small, isolated ecosystem. Their genetic diversity was extremely low after thousands of years of inbreeding, which likely made them more vulnerable to disease and environmental changes. A new, highly intelligent predator showing up on their island could have easily pushed them over the brink. It's a somber end to an incredible story of survival. The last of a species that had walked the earth for hundreds of thousands of years likely met its end at the hands of a few human explorers on a remote Arctic shore. The discovery of the Wrangel Island mammoths has completely rewritten our understanding of extinction. It shows us that extinction isn't always a sudden, dramatic event that happens all at once. Sometimes it's a long, drawn-out process, with remnant populations clinging to life in isolated refuges long after the species has vanished from the mainstream. It's a powerful lesson about how resilient life can be, but also how fragile it is, especially on islands. Today, many endangered species exist in similar island habitats, whether they are actual islands or just isolated pockets of wilderness surrounded by human development. The story of the last mammoths serves as a crucial reminder of the importance of protecting these last refugees and the incredible, unique life they hold. So, the next time you see an illustration of a pyramid, take a moment to imagine a completely different scene happening at the same time, thousands of miles to the north. A cold wind blowing across the tundra, and a small family of shaggy, tusked giants, the very last woolly mammoths, making their way across the frozen landscape. They were a living link to a bygone era, survivors who outlasted their time, existing alongside a human history that was just beginning to build its own legends. Their story is a powerful testament to the surprising and often overlapping timelines of life on our planet. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. It's amazing what science can uncover about our world's deep past. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the incredible stories of science and history. Let me know in the comments what other historical overlaps you find mind-blowing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.